Welcome to Austin Eras, where we explore Austin's transformation into a 21st century boomtown and the voices shaping its past, present, and future.
Welcome to the Austin Eras podcast. I'm your host, Adam Flagg, and I have a really interesting guest today all about fashion. So what if I told you Austin is quietly building one of the most important fashion ecosystems in the country? Not by copying New York or Paris, but by rethinking the entire way the industry works. And what if the future isn't about runway shows or luxury brands, but about technology, sustainability, and creating real career pathways for people who have never had access to this industry before? Today's guest, Nina Means, is someone helping us test that theory in real time. She started with an empty room here at ACC, Austin Community College, 10 years ago. And today that vision has become the ACC Fashion Incubator, a program helping build the next generation of designers, entrepreneurs, and fashion businesses right here in Austin. So Nina, I have an opening question for you. You've worked in New York, Italy, real fashion capitals, and I want to start here. What is Austin doing in fashion right now that those places are not doing?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show. This is really telling a really special slice of Austin. And so as we're becoming more visible as a global city, these stories are so important for us to like kind of reclaim who we are and what we're all about. I feel like I've been here for 10 years and I feel like I'm a we, I believe I belong here. Not the French we, right? It's that we are part of this amazing community. And so Austin's really special. But when I look at, the places that, I've studied and worked in Florence, Italy, and New York, I've been to Paris. And it's just really it's one of those industries that just kind of catch you up in the excitement and aspiration of beauty and what's possible. Austin has a much more grounded story, I think. And that's really something that's really beautiful about Austin. Austin's really driven by authenticity, raw creativity, and then really being responsible for the world that we live in. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of creating an industry that is committed to beauty, committed to creating amazing products, but is doing it in a way that's sustainable, is leveraging fashion technology, and it's really to turn the whole business model upside down, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that idea of the transparency or authenticity of the city is going to permeate any industry. And I think that's an interesting take of like how it's affecting fashion here. It's more about what's the practicality in some ways of creating great beauty and create things for this culture. How do you feel like that's kind of evolved even in the 10 years that you've been here?
One of the things that I really appreciated was, so one of the great painters, Michelangelo, he was very experimental. And so things would kind of deteriorate over time or you wouldn't be able to enjoy them or they needed to be restored. And it didn't make the work any less genius. It just needed more technology, right? There was an evolution. And so I think what Austin has is this beautiful genius around creativity. And then we're adding these pieces of the technology that's been bolstered here that I think is really going to help that creativity endure much longer so that we can enjoy it for a very long time. I think what's also really key in this is really how fashion really is an identity conversation and less so a location conversation. And so people get to define what it means to them, and they get a chance to gather around other people who are saying the same things that they're saying. So there's a room for me, there's a room for you, there's a room for, creatives who love purple on Tuesdays, and so it's a really exciting way that we get a chance to connect with our true community, our true, our tribe.
Well, let me tell the audience a little bit about your background. So Nina Means is a North Carolina native, Durham, right? Yes. That's UNC?
Yes.
Okay, so North Carolina.
I'm a Tar Heel.
Yeah. So you began your career in actually public health before making a calculated pivot into fashion. You earned your master's in public health from George Washington University, then pursued your long-standing passion of studying at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, with both time in Florence and it sounds like some time in Paris as well. You went on to design brands like Rebecca Taylor, American Eagle Outfitters, H by Halston, working with those brands, and then launching your own women's wear label right here in Texas. Today, you serve as the director of the ACC Fashion Incubator, Nina is helping build a new kind of fashion ecosystem in Austin, one focused on sustainability, technology, and real pathways for creative entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
I love this because before you arrived here, fashion was still existing, doing its thing. But ACC, what was the program? What did that even look like at the time?
That's a good question. I think that sometimes people are like, oh, the fashion industry must have just started, 10 years ago. And you're like, oh, absolutely not. No, there's been businesses here, industry leaders here for decades. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge the heritage of what has been here in this region already and how critical it is to really kind of recognize that we're standing on shoulders of people who are maybe not as visible. Their hard work created $86 million worth of industry that the city said we need to support. And so whenever they went to say, okay, what are the other areas that need, investment after we did that whole 10-year tech boom, we know when we did that on purpose and Silicon Hills was born. Now we're like, okay, who else? Where else? And so when you fill up, I think it was in 2013, they filled up the entire city hall with people who are representing the fashion industry here in Austin. And the city took note. And economic development took it as a mantle and said, we are going to support this. And so they took ACC and other industry leaders that were already here in Austin and said, we are going to make this real. And so the Fashion Incubator was a solution they did after going all over the country, looking for a variety of different ways to really make the industry understand that they were really here to stay and that they were here to be supported. And so this really became a resource, to our community to really be able to connect the dots. And I think from my work in public health before, community has always been a huge driver, in the kind of work that I do. We can't make an impact without the people who are here, And so the idea of building something without them or for them, or you're going to hand something over without their investment and their engagement, it doesn't make any sense. And so we really look at how we continually sign back to this community that's robustly here. I want to make sure I land on your question. I think you're also kind of like, well, what's coming up, or how are we transitioning? This is what was here when we first started, and then kind of how we got to where we are right now.
And we'll cover more of that. I think that the key here is kind of understanding where this momentum came from. And I there's a few industries that have really popped up post tech, and it's been interesting to watch that. Hey, something's already been built here. We just want to build on this and make this better. And that's what I'm hearing from you
100%.
From 2014 to today.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really what I always want to communicate with people is that, we've really been able to build something that I think has become more visible over time. Yeah. But as much as it's done that, it's really been built on, there's amazing designers, Linda Asaf, Sam Alexander has done incredible work in this space already for fashion technology and continues to do amazing work in this space. There's a lot of industrial, design for, kind of advanced materials and advanced manufacturing. We've got a robust space, industry that's really taking shape here in the area and outside of Austin. And so when we look at how our role in wearable technology, how people are kind of exploring these interstellar futures, what are we wearing, and how does that all come together? And a lot of our technology that we have here, it's transferable. It's whether it's automotive interiors or apparel or, aerospace, they're really learning skills across all of these different industries for any time you're wearing soft goods. And so it's really incredible, I think, where Austin could really stand in the gap of just things that are not happening in other places.
For those watching and listening at home, we'll go through with the camera here at the end and show some of the technology and some of this, what this facility looks like. So I want people to be able to tune in on YouTube, Instagram to be able to find those clips. I want to actually go to the good hang segment. So in the past, we've always done these late, and I'm moving this up because I think there's a lot that fashion can be quick and fun and interesting. And I want to kind of get your takes on a few things. So let me throw a few questions at you. What do people get wrong about Austin style?
Ooh. Okay. So we do love our cowboy boots. We do love our work boots. We love, our shackets and all the things that we do, right?
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes people imagine from other parts of Texas even that Austin's not into fashion. And when I look around, I actually see some people who are actually into fashion around here. I think people like to kind of downplay, Austin's interest in it. But I think that as we're becoming a more global city and people are moving in, I think that, there's an energy about how we want to express ourselves, how we want to feel in our clothes. That's very unique to Austin. And I think that's really something I hope will continue.
I moved here 19 years ago, you 10 years ago. I remember moving here and it felt like I'd landed on Mars. Like with this different style of uniqueness, it was
very different,
beyond what I had known or expected.
Yeah, it's like anything's right? It's like you get a chance to express yourself fully. No one's gonna, look down on you for doing it. It's like, hey, you love skirts with cowboy boots. I like suits with button-down shirts, and it's like, and everyone belongs, everyone has a place here, which I think is really special.
So if someone wanted to dress like Austin, and maybe we're stereotyping, maybe we're putting people in a little of a box, but what does that even mean to you?
I think it's understated luxury.
Okay.
Because people imagine that, I go vintage shopping, but I see people leaving with vintage Dior. I see people leaving with vintage Chanel. That's the vintage shopping, but I also see the boots and how special the boots are. If you walk into, it's not just the Lucchese, which is amazing, right? They're beautifully, hewn, boots, but it's also the story of Tecovas and the rise of Tecovas. It's there's so many amazing brands like that. We actually have our first cowboy boot brand in the incubator.
Really?
Corelazo. Yeah. Carol is the designer. She's an Austinite, but she's originally from Peru. So she's between Peru and Austin, and Corelazo is the cowboy in Peru. Okay. And so it's a really beautiful connection to her personal heritage, but also where she lives and operates now, and the boots are gorgeous. So amazing. So they're colorful, they're fun, but they're very well done and priced accordingly.
Fair. I might get you in trouble asking this question because I'm sure you see a lot of brands and you have a lot of great students and people in the incubator, but what's one local brand, or if you want to throw a couple in here, or designer that more people should know about here?
Ooh, okay. I've got a few.
Okay.
So Leva is this incredible shirt brand. She's really kind of stood for this one white shirt that's like her key item, but it's got these interchangeable collars. And so they're very she's a interior designer by trade, and she's kind of taken her interior design aesthetic into clothing. Okay. But she's been in Austin for decades. Her kids are, come up through all of the Austin schools, and so it's just such a special, she's really put her whole heart and soul into the quality of the goods. Okay. And they're just really beautiful. I also really love, we've got a new brand that we're cultivating here, Hava. She's here in Austin, but she's really leveraging a lot of her community back home in India. And so it feels very Austin in the way that it's, really artisan, but it's just beautiful textiles, amazing colors. And I think that's one of the things that really stands out about the way Austin likes to dress. It's more colorful. Yes. It's more, any combination goes, and, textures and prints. And so she's really landed that really well. And then my last one, I would say, my brands are going to be like, you didn't say my name. But the Syria Anderson, she has something called One Universal Journey. And it's this zeitgeist kind of style streetwear where she's a fine artist. And so she's got these huge canvases of her work, but they've been translated into these amazing heavy hoodies and t-shirts and dresses, and so it feels very it's livable, but it's also collectible. Yeah. And so it's a really special line that she's creating.
Are they more pattern driven, or are they more like, hey, I just took a canvas and put it on a item?
That's a really good question. So she's really specific about how she layers in different components of the art into the goods. And so sometimes they've been rendered where it's almost like a 3M representation on top of, so you've got layers of the art kind of coming through the pieces. But the weight just feels like you're kind of in a like a weighted blanket, it just has that very secure, high quality feel. And that's really what we're wanting to like imbibe as we have these hyper creatives, that they're incredibly well done. And so you get that understated luxury feel.
Excellent. I want to explore a little bit now, kind of looking at your past, a little bit about this career shift. Because you always liked fashion, it sounds like, but you went into public health. You went into a reliable, stable industry. You had a master's. You did all the things. You got all the education. Where's the moment where you realized, hey, I can't do this. I have to shift. I have to change. When did that happen for you?
I think it was before I was like, if I don't do something now, I'm going to get these golden handcuffs in healthcare.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to have the guts to walk away, because, your whole life, your parents want you to be successful, right? They make their own sacrifices. They're like, we didn't actually do all of this for you to go be a fashion designer. We don't know if you're going to be struggling. We don't know if you're going to, it's like, we don't want you to struggle. So we want you to, and so I did the plan B thing first, right? My family's in healthcare. I joined in my way, which was more on like administration and program management. And I loved it. I enjoyed what I did, but I was like, but fashion was like kind of in the background, and I was like, I really need to just see. If I'm horrible, I will come back to healthcare, but I haven't had to look back. And it's been such an incredible journey.
Yeah, I love that. So I love what you just said, that you could always come back, but you would always have the back of your head if you didn't actually go try it. Completely.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to say the obvious phrases around, how we get a chance to live our lives. But I really have a strong aversion to regret, and I really want to just put it out on the table and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, we know it does.
Yeah.
And we'll just do that.
So you showed up in Austin 10 years ago, started your own label, was already in the fashion space.
Yep.
How did this begin? I'm just curious. We talked a little bit about this early, but we're at the Highland Mall right now.
Yes.
The former Highland Mall. We're on this campus. It's incredible.
Retail revival.
Massive.
Yes.
I don't know. Are we probably in a former store?
It used to be the Express, actually.
Did it? I was joking about the Express. Really?
Yes, exactly. Okay. That's exactly where we are. We are in the old Express. It is now used to train designers who were probably never ever privy to this as in the retail space, right? And so we're really kind of reimagining. It's possible. It's 1 million square feet at Highland campus. And so the entire mall has been completely redone for creative business and entrepreneurship, for other industries as well. But we really kind of hold it down for fashion here, for fashion tech. But the transition to answer your other question is, I had actually, whenever I realized I was moving to Texas, on my lunch break at Halston, I would like run to the factory and start making my label that I was going to start selling when I moved to Texas.
Okay.
And so literally I could like kind of like work on the Halston product, then run, go see the factory, say, oh no, like not like that. Like, I want to do it like this, and then come back. And then, but when I moved to Texas, I couldn't do that. I had to like hire someone, who's going to run around and do all the bases, and it was a lot harder here from Texas. So as I was, working with, I had a couple of buyers for the collection at the time, and Patty Hoffpower, she's been over the Garden Room. She's the owner of the Garden Room.
She's the advisory board too.
Yes.
I looked at the list.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so she's on the advisory board, but she's been in retail for 40 years, and she's owned her store here in Austin. It's a very special place. You have to go visit her on West 38th Street.
Okay.
The Garden Room. But I was selling her the line, and she picked it up for the store, and she said, hey, they're actually trying to build this fashion incubator. Why don't you send me your resume, and maybe you'd be interested in trying it out. And so I was like, okay, I wasn't really sure, and, but when I saw the job description, what they were trying to accomplish, the partners they had on board, over $13 million worth of technology, they're like, so we're trying to figure out where to put this. And I was like, perfect, give it to me. I was like, can't wait. Yeah, it's like a kid in a candy store, you're like, don't dangle the cake in front of the, and so I was really excited to be able to jump into, this very exciting project. It was like the perfect storm.
I'm curious about this, like high fashion FIT, going through all of that. What did that teach you that you're able to kind of apply here in Austin that's been the most effective for you? Because you had leadership in public health, and then you come here and do that. I'm kind of curious about just the whole career path and how all those lessons kind of led you here.
No, I appreciate that so much. I feel like, there's such a, no pun intended, but it works. There's a thread through my entire career that really focuses on community impact, innovation, business strategy. And, honestly, I've really fallen in love with product. I think that what you can create is just from practically nothing. It's like alchemy, which is really exciting and fun. But I think that's kind of what this program felt like. It was like, it wasn't starting from nothing. It was starting from some really beautiful choice pieces that needed to be put together in a certain way. So it's like solving a puzzle. Yeah. And there's something about that just kind of gets me completely going. So I've been able to really work with kind of building more structure to our strategy about how we say hello to the world from Austin, specifically around fashion technology, sustainable business, and entrepreneurship. And that's really something that is about digitally transforming the way that we do our business and connecting the dots for amazing jobs that we didn't know existed, and opening the door for generative AI and making sure that we're integrating all of that. And so there's a lot to be done still. And the tension between my vision and where we are is still pretty great, you know? But it's really exciting, how far we've come, over the years. And I can see so much more in our future.
I'm sure your vision's changed quite a bit in the last 10 years of what you thought was possible or maybe where you thought things were going. But what do you think you saw in those early years that maybe other people didn't when it came to starting the incubator and really getting things going?
Yeah, I think, so before I lightly mentioned this perfect storm, one of the things that I've learned in my public health career is that when you don't have the right stakeholders on board from the beginning, you're really kind of doomed before you start, you know? Yeah. And I think what was really special about this was that we had alignment from the city partner, from the economic development department. We had funds committed toward it, which was significant. The city partnered with Austin Community College, who, has always been touted as, the workhorse, of the region, and so if we're going to get people trained, it's going to be us, and then having this technology partner on board with $13 million worth of their best stuff on an evergreen contract. I was like, okay, we could work with this. This is a great place to start. Alignment is so powerful.
Yeah, I love this. I hope everyone's enjoying the conversation with Nina Means. Make sure to subscribe to Austin Era's wherever you get your podcasts. We're also launching an Austin Era's newsletter. It's not just about the podcast. You should sign up, but about everything happening across the city, music, culture, business, and more. People you should know. So if you want to stay connected to what's really going on in Austin, we'd love to have you. And if you're in town here in Austin and you want to come to a happy hour, we're going to have a happy hour May 14th from 5 to 7. So just email if you want to sign up for the newsletter or the happy hour, info@austineras.com. We'll be right back. We're going to cover the present and the future and finish up with Nina Means after this. Thanks again for joining the Austin Eras podcast.
In every episode of Austin Eras, we uncover the city's history, vibrant present, and bold future. Just like Austin, your financial journey is a story worth crafting. At Collective Advisors, led by Adam Flagg, managing partner, senior wealth advisor, and certified financial planner professional, your story is in skilled hands. From investments to retirement planning, Adam and his team bring together a collective of dependable professionals to help you build, maintain, and enjoy financial security. Start your financial legacy today at collectiveadvisors.com. or call 512-467-1923. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Welcome back to the Austin Eras podcast. We're here with Nina Means. She's the director of the ACC Fashion Incubator, and we're talking about how Austin might build a completely new model for the fashion industry. I want to get to really the nitty gritty of what this fashion incubator does and what ACC does for students. So we talked about how you showed up in an empty room and now here's what this looks like today. But I think for someone that's never really heard of the fashion incubator or what ACC really does, what really happens here? I think understanding how the students work here.
Absolutely. Whenever we started the Fashion Incubator, we were asked to do two things. One was to really drive small business development, to really encourage those pre-traction founders to understand how the business really operates and to be able to leverage technology throughout their process to make a more sustainable business, which is something that we've really taken to heart. The second thing that we were asked to do was to really work on digital transformation for our industry. So upskilling and really getting people trained on how to use this technology. And so as we're, courting other businesses from outside of the region, how important it is for them to have a ready labor force that's ready to go to work. And so we're doing that, which is really exciting. At the very beginning of the process, there was a continuing education department that had really done a lot of the testing, Tara Garcia, Don Tracy, Sherry-Ann Jenkins, Molly Beth Malcolm. They were all a part of that early stage testing where we had, I think it was maybe 250 students that they started off with that were getting trained and taught how to do this stuff. Since then, we've really seen, well over 1,000 students through the program. But they're working now in groups of like 300 students at a time for the associate degree, learning how to do these really key skills, early on. And that's really a part of our credit bearing program led by Janie Chang. The incubator is really where students are learning how to take all of those skills and make it a commercial viable business. And so over the years, we've really been able to work with, scores of businesses that have really allowed us to be able to help them understand concept of commercialization. Yeah. They do a curriculum with us, like a 12-month intensive, where they're really understanding how to utilize the technology, how to test products on avatars, how to send products to we have a network of 140 countries around the world that use our technology and software already. And so that's baked into that experience. Wow. And so in a tariff environment that we're in, being able to nearshore and getting product closer to where it's going to be made and sold is critical. And so we're teaching kind of this new way of supply chain that really, a lot of people don't think about fashion that way. They think about, the runway and they think about the fashion show and
Project
they think
Runway,
about,
right?
Yeah, it's like that's what's happening in there. Yeah. But then there's a whole business of people that it takes to get all that done. It's a $5 trillion industry globally.
So, and I think our listeners may or may not know how Austin Community College works, but there's been a big change in what it takes to become a student, how it is. My 14-year-old daughter is signing up to become a student here to get dual credit. And it's so amazing. I love it.
I love that.
But can you tell people about what it takes to become an ACC student now?
Yes. So, if you guys have been watching the news, over the last couple of years, ACC has made it free tuition.
That's amazing.
Free tuition, guys. I mean, to go get a associate degree. But if you continue in any one of our 5 bachelor's programs, you can become, you can have cybersecurity or bachelor's of nursing. And that benefit continues. Like you don't stop. And so what I love about ACC is that it serves the community that it's in. It respects the tax dollars that are given to it. It makes wise investments. You guys may have seen yesterday, we just signed off on a really beautiful property for Southeast Travis County. That's not too far from Del Valle, but Del Valle, or from like some of the like near the 183 and I believe 71. It's not too far away from those areas. Okay. Beautiful new space. There's tenants there, but they're going to be starting classes later this year. And instead of building something brand new from scratch, now we've got this beautiful facility already ready to go, and really making sure that we're using taxpayer dollars, efficiently and wisely. So there's some things that I get really excited about with that because it really creates more opportunities for us to train more students. But that free tuition is a huge deal. And it's really something that is allowing students everywhere to participate in these really cool programs.
And it's a huge, huge student population.
Mm-hmm. 40,000 students.
40,000?
Yeah, we've got 40,000 students around our catchment area is about the size of the state of Connecticut across all of our, counties that we serve. And so it's really exciting to see the growth. But 40,000 students.
Yeah, I just saw one of the deans speak on Monday. And he actually said it's no longer the size of Connecticut, it's the size of New Jersey.
Whoa, okay.
So it's getting bigger and bigger in terms of the coverage size. So it's really incredible to me what's happening. I'm curious about what does someone walk away with this education? If they come to the fashion program or they come to the incubator, what do you hope that every student gets?
The faculty here really care. Our staff really cares about the student and the quality of their education. We have some of the most state-of-the-art equipment. I come out of Research One institutions and private universities, and some of the resources that we have here, I never saw. What I have in the Fashion Incubator was more than what I had at Fashion Institute of Technology in New York.
Really?
And we actually fashioned a lot of the program off of FIT in New York because we really wanted to make sure that we were building off of top, leading schools, around the country. It's always in the top 10 globally. And so we replicated a lot of what that experience was so that these students have that kind of experience. I think that's really what's I found really refreshing and exciting about ACC is that even though it's incredibly affordable, it's still a top-notch education. And so I put our faculty up against anybody. They're really solid, and it's an amazing experience for the students. They're doing what the future of work will look like.
You're a career changer, and I get the impression from talking with you that there have been a number of career changers entering this program and entering the incubator. Who are these people? Can you give some examples of, you don't have to name drop if you don't want to, but essentially, who are these people and where are they coming from? Why are they showing up here?
That's a really great question. We've started realizing, this is probably the same thing for just the city in general, but the world is looking at Austin, and they're looking for very specific types of things, quality of life, this kind of thing. But, we've had some really great, founders come through here where they're relocating from other countries, they're relocating from other parts of Texas just to be here in Austin to really build their businesses. I had one cohort of designers who I think there was one person who lived here, had been here in Austin for, decades, but everyone else had moved to Austin to be a part of what Austin was building. Mm-hmm. And I think that really is a testament to, just the brand of the city, but it's also the brand of what we're building with the incubator. They get, they get to leverage technology in a way that honestly you'd have to be at enterprise level to be able to get your hands on. And so the fact that they can do that here at very low cost is unreal. We have minimal costs associated with incubating the businesses and brands, but they get a chance to mentor. Our mentors came from Nina Ricci, from Calvin Klein, from Saks, from Bergdorf, and they knew the business and they know the business inside and out. And these brands get a chance to interface with people who are top-notch executives in their field that are really guiding them towards what's possible.
Are there any, we'll call it a common thread, we'll use the thread word again. Are there any common threads of industries or past experiences of some of the people that are changing careers that you found kind of align well with fashion?
That's a really good question. I think that the people that I've seen do work that I have really admired as a part of our incubator are the project managers. Oh, okay. They're systems thinkers, they're people thinkers, and they know how to go from we have an idea to a finished thing. And so I've seen some amazing, so whether it be for real estate, whether it be for facilities management, whether it's, I have a user experience designer from Visa. There are a number of people that have done incredible work kind of transitioning into this field, mostly just driven from passion. They're just excited. They want to, or they're solving a problem. They're like, you know what? There's no clothes for me. I'm a petite woman, of this, size range, and I can't find clothes that work for me. And so I'm going to fix that today, and so they show up and they make it happen and they build beautiful products. And it's our goal really to make sure that they're successful. I will share one brand in particular that I'm very proud of. Carolyn Nash leads a brand called G180 Swim, and the origin story you'll have to look up. But she is she's committed to eliminating drowning deaths, and so she had the very first utility patent here in the incubator for a flotation device that's very sleek and streamlined. We took it over to the Department of Defense floor at Capitol Factory, talked to the head of that floor, and he threw it on immediately, And he's like, I wish I had this when I was flying my plane, this is way better than trying to figure out getting the device from underneath my seat while the plane is going down. I need to have this on my body. It's sleek. It's easy to wear. It's flexible. And if there's a problem, I just pull. and it's ready to go, and so it was a really exciting moment for her to really be validated that way. But she's done accelerators and things since us, and she's a really special founder. The Belizean Coast Guard was actually courting her for this particular device. And they're like, well, if you just add a whistle and a bell or a whistle and a mirror, this is really what we need in order to, make sure people can signal for help if they're in the water. And so she's like, okay, great. And so this is these are amazing opportunities that they're getting by building just really strong, high quality products.
It's interactive fashion. It's people that are pivoting into where it has a business application too. So it's not always just high fashion. I'm hearing, hey, practical fashion is quite useful. Completely.
And I think that based on where we are, there's so many outdoor enthusiasts. There's so many people who are like, you know what? There's the Lives In founder. I don't know if you guys have followed his work. He has a utility pant. This is probably another brand I would have brought up in the earlier question. Amos Schwartzfarb's been working with him and some others from the Techstars group. But I think they're moving on to greater heights with the business these days. But he has this really incredible utility pant, and it's really for anyone who's hiking and, living and, just the guy who likes to have a lot of great options with his wear, and the fit, the materials, the quality. I was like, this is perfect, Austin. It feels the right vibe. You can wear it in the office. You can go on a hike later.
Okay. I'll have to check out that brand. One thing we discussed before we got on this podcast was this idea of wages in the fashion space. It sounds like for a long time, wages were more fast food, kind of higher, a little above minimum wage. And that's kind of exploded. Talk to me a little bit about why those wage rates have exploded in Austin and how people can make a respectable, livable income in that space.
Yeah, this is huge. And this is really, I think, where my public health hat kind of comes in, is because, we go to school because we want to improve our life. There's some of us who just love to learn, but many of us are going because we want to level up. We want to do more. When I first started this project, the numbers were a little low, when I looked around and I was like, okay, well, what are we really preparing people for? We've got all this stuff. Now, where are they going to go? Right. And so you're looking around for, textile adjacent businesses. How many of them are actually in this region? I'm looking for wages. How much are they actually going to pay them when they're done? And when we first started, it's around $17 to $25 an hour, for these types of jobs. Most people don't realize this, but Texas is number 4 in the country for textile businesses.
Really?
Yeah. It's textile and textile adjacent businesses, are about 1,600 of them in Texas. And it represents, the 4th largest market in the country. But since COVID, our industry realized that, we've got to be able to work digitally. And a lot of those digital skills are really what's really driving wages and wage, growth. And so now, instead of it being $17 to $25 an hour, we're looking at things that are more like $30 to $50 an hour, sometimes $60 an hour. I just had my technical designer. She's our product development manager. She also teaches in the associate degree about digitizing. We can show some of the equipment that the students are learning on. And she's got, 14 new students, in that class that are learning how to digitize, patterns and to be able to manipulate those things digitally into the computer. And those jobs go for $60 an hour.
Okay. That's amazing. Yeah. So you can actually become a designer in a sense, using those skills. And going back to this earlier thread about building an industry of fashion here, I'm curious about obviously you're building something intentionally. Do you feel like there's other places around the city that are also intentionally working together to build an industry of the future here?
I would absolutely say yes. There are a few organizations and leaders here that I would be remiss not to mention. Larissa Ibarra leads Refined Shopping. She has an incredible community. Her background is in merchandising, but she's really honed in on, another group of founders and leaders that are drawn to Austin. And, I think in partnership, we've really been able to work on developing the industry together. She's really been someone who, I look to as a thought partner, and also someone that we collaborate with. We sent our brands to her event for South by Southwest. And so it's really an opportunity for us to collaborate, more meaningfully. I think there's also slow fashion initiatives that are going on, circular economy, which is a huge part of what Austin does. So Maddie Morgan is leading the charge with the Economic Development Department regarding circular economy businesses and zero waste and how critical that is. We've got a piece of equipment here that we can show you later about how that all happens and what's possible when we leverage technology to help us to be more sustainable. But yeah, there's some really great people. I know Linda Asaf, Sam Alexander, the city of Austin has been a huge partner from day one. And so, we continue our work with them. They're still very close to what we do, and we really appreciate all of the support they've given us over the years.
We've been living in the present with our conversation right now. I want to zoom into the future a little bit and talk about your vision of where things go. I think when we build industries, one of the biggest things, you look at Opportunity Austin, you look at the city and all the different things that drive companies to decide to move here. I'm sure we've had some wins, some micro wins here and there, but I'm curious about the next 10 years, what it's going to look like for a fashion company to say, not only are we looking for people here, not only are we putting the magnifying glass in the city, but we're actually landing a huge thing here. What does that look like for you?
There are lots of things that are in the woodwork that I look forward to being able to talk about more openly. But whenever you look at the state of Texas and the heritage of how we handle leather and the proximity to Mexico and the way that they handle leather, there's a lot of opportunity for companies to really invest in the generational skills that are here in Texas. We've seen what I really see as a long-term opportunity is, whenever people are wanting to do things, more efficiently, when they're wanting to do things with technology integrated throughout the value chain, Austin's very AI adept, and so if you want to get anything automated and you want to get any workflow maximized, Austinites know what to do, And so it's like, I feel like marrying that with industries that have been traditionally analog, that's a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Before you know it, you can turn that thing into like a Maserati, you know what I mean? It's like, it goes so fast, in a way that you just couldn't without it. So I think that a lot of companies are seeing the value of that and how to still leverage the beautiful artisanship of what they bring to the business, at je ne sais quoi, that it factor, while also being able to leverage technology to be able to serve more people effectively with the right product at the right time.
So I'm curious about Austin's evolution as we look into the future. Can Austin become a real fashion city? And I use those terms kind of jokingly, but or should it stop chasing that language and define maybe a different intention?
I love this question because I think that as Devil Wears Prada comes out, the 2 comes out very soon. I think that there's the part of the fashion industry that's purely for entertainment, right? We love the ideas of these spaces and the closed door and the hush hush and the exclusivity and all of that. But Austin gives everything a big hug, and so it's kind of the anti, it's a, but in a wonderfully endearing way. What I see is that where people learn to thread the needle between high-end exclusive product and then being sustainably viable, whether it's through environmental sustainability, customer and business sustainability, and really seeing true growth. I see that Austin really has the opportunity to really be the leader there, and to really redefine what our future really looks like. I think before we thought we had to trash the environment to be able to get to the right product. I think we thought we had to, close the doors and make everything tight and hushed and, But Austin has a really special way to make everything discoverable, but also inclusive, which is a very interesting, South by Southwest has that vibe, right?
Yeah.
You may not be on the official calendar, but all those adjacent spaces, you're discovering something special in a very unique space.
Yeah.
And it's it calls to you, And I think that Austin has they already know how to do that.
It's this approachability that I think you've woven in throughout our conversation where you feel like the doors are not closed, the doors are open, people are willing to chat. And I think that's as we continue the theme of talking to different guests, there's this magic that kind of comes out in this collaborativeness that occurs when people aren't playing what Meryl Streep's character on The Devil Wears Prada. Like it's such a juxtaposition between that.
It really is. I think the serendipity happens in that space, where it's very, you're like, oh, I just happened to meet so-and-so. And turns out we know 5 of the same people. And before you know it, there's like a whole world that's connected that wasn't before.
So I want to talk a little bit about the people coming out of the incubator, because there's some challenges with talented creatives. Some of them probably don't develop investable businesses, but yet they have this great amount of creativity. Why do you think that is? And is that something you're trying to fix, or do you want to let people kind of be artistic regardless?
I hear what you're saying. And this is something that we kind of hold delicately, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's a part of the business, especially the way Austin defines themselves. And I wouldn't say everyone in Austin, but I would say there's a very specific way that Austin imbibes its individuality. And I think that has to remain and has to be protected, just from a cultural, as Austin grows, that the culture has to be, the center has to stay there. But I think that when I'm looking at just pure business, right? Like, can we or can we not grow this? Will this or will this not sell? You know what? We can't make it out of that material because that material is going to disintegrate, and it's like, or those stitches are too loose, or, we have those conversations with our businesses because it's really about making sure that as they're building, that other people have room to participate in the brand that they're creating.
That's right.
And then whenever you look at investment in consumer packaged goods and fashion overall, although we are all dressed and we all know that someone has to make the clothes, it's one of those areas that until people see traction, they're not really comfortable making large scale investments. So this is like a perfect place for like angel investors, to show up, and so we connect dots for opportunities there. It's a really great place for them to like work on like gaining non-dilutive funds to be able to support kind of getting to that traction space. And so what we do is we do a lot of coaching to get to traction.
Yeah, okay.
And so I think that for them, we de-risk a lot of businesses for future investment by understanding the business inside and out before they get it to market and leveraging tech throughout the space so that their cash burn rates are like, they're looking way better than where they started. So I could get into the weeds about it, but I think at a high level, our goal really is to find brands that we can then take to the next accelerator, that we take to the next, and then they're ready, it really helps them to prepare for those moments. One of our brands we actually sent to out of 600 companies around the country. I believe they chose 25.
Okay.
And one of our brands in the first cohort, Shaka Mahone, was selected for the Macy's workshop. And so they were brought out to New York. It was actually happening during COVID. And it's really a place where they basically groom, founders in underrepresented communities to, learn how to deliver to a big box store like Macy's. And then at the end, they pitch and they have the opportunity to be able to like get a spot in the store in a long-term sense. What's amazing is that whenever he went to that experience, he's like, I knew exactly what was happening in that room before, he's like, I didn't feel
prepared.
Yeah, he was completely prepared to be in that room. And so that was the biggest compliment for us is that he knew how to stand on his own 2 feet with his business in a place like Macy's, this 160-year-old retailer.
Yeah, so I think that's really my final question, which is if someone wants to be part of what you're building, whether that's learning, supporting, getting involved, what should they do? How do they get connected?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Macy's. We do a lot of work with them through their Style Fund, and we've been working with them for some time. If you're just curious and you're not sure if you want to start a fashion business, but you love what's happening in the vicinity of the industry, we have a future fashion series that we offer in the spring and the fall. It's going on right now. And so you can just kind of pop in, come see us at our studio. The other thing that we do is we have a cohort model for each group of fashion businesses. And so that application's opening up at the end of May, and it'll be open through the summer for the cohort starting in the fall. So this is a really great opportunity to ask questions. We'll be doing some Ask Me Anythings just leading up to that release. And so we'll follow us on our Instagram. And
Which is what? What's your Instagram?
It is at ACC Fashion Incubator.
Okay.
And our link tree, we always update that for events, and opportunities to connect with us there. So we're always looking for mentors, subject matter experts. We love really working with the community that's here in Austin.
That's great. I love what ACC is doing. I love how you're involved and how this has all just blossomed in such a special way. I think what stands out to me from this conversation is that your story isn't just about fashion, but it's about pursuing something that mattered to you, this career change and watching other people do the same thing and building a successful path somewhere else. So I love that you started with plan B, went to plan A, and always said, I could go back to plan B, but I'm going to make this work.
Yes.
I think that's really special. So not only did you do that, but you came to this city, you put a lot into it. You've been here for 10 years now and helped build something from the ground up. And I think that's special, that now it creates real opportunity for people.
Thank you so much.
So I love that you've been here, and I love just what you've built and what the ACC continues to kind of foster in people. Thank you so much for being on the show, Nina Means.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's a pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. Signing off from Austin Eras, I'm Adam Flagg. This is Nina Means.
The views and opinions shared by Nina Means are her own and based on her personal and professional experiences. They do not necessarily represent the views of her employer, clients, partner organizations, or any boards on which she serves.
Austin Eras, featuring Adam Flagg, is brought to you by Collective Advisors. Collective Advisors offers investment advisory services through CWM LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Guests on Austin Eras are not affiliates of CWM LLC, and opinions expressed by guests may not reflect those of CWM LLC. This show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes and is not intended to provide specific legal, tax, or other professional advice. For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, always consult with a qualified professional.